Can you still learn to play the violin beautifully as an adult beginner? Or is it too late, like a lot of violin teachers say? Over the last 10 years, I teach hundreds of adult students, some of them over 70. And today, I will share with you a true story about the real reason most adults quit or are never able to play the violin beautifully. And then we'll see what every successful student I teach did so that you can start playing the violin beautifully. And first, I want to share with you the mind-blowing story of Alexandra that I share in this bestseller book I published in Germany. More than 10 years ago, a woman called Alexandra contacted me. And she told me that she had cerebral palsy and asked me if I could still teach her. And I have no idea, so I said, of course. But when she came to my home, I really saw that she had some real problems controlling her body. And when I saw that, I started to doubt a little bit. I thought, maybe I'm wrong, maybe not everybody can learn to play the violin beautifully. And she already played the violin for a few years at this time, so she showed me a little bit what she could do. And what I directly noticed is that every time she needed to play the forefinger, instead of just putting the finger on the string, she will move up the whole arm, jumping to play it. And actually I had a lot of students who did this thing because they thought that their forefinger is too small, and it is not. So I asked Alexandra and she told me, yeah, that's because of my cerebral palsy. We saw that with my previous teacher, but there is nothing we can do. And I thought, maybe yes, but maybe there is a way. So I said, let's try to use a real method that I teach all my students to master the forefinger. Let's see what happens. And it was not easy, but after a few months, Alexandra could play her forefinger perfectly like any student. And that's where I realized that the main issue was not, using the right method for the forefinger or not. The main issue was that her teacher and herself had put in their mind that Alexandra could not learn to play the forefinger correctly. They thought this is how it is. And that's exactly the main issue I saw with a lot of adults. Some of them quitted just because they didn't really believe they could learn the violin. They quit because they thought there is no point in trying anymore. It's not gonna work anyway. Or what I see even more are adult people playing sometimes the violin with a teacher for 15 years and still having a very bad sound, very bad intonation. And they think it's normal, Sometimes their teacher told them, yeah, you are not so young. Or they think themselves, yeah, I'm not very talented. But after teaching hundreds of adult students who thought before that they were too old or too untalented, some over 60, 70 or even 80, what I realized is that was never an issue. The issue is just that they learn the wrong way. And in my free masterclass, I explain a little bit more in details what are the most important points. And you can register for free with the link below this video. But now I really want to show you how my most successful adult students mastered the violin. And first, I want to share with you 2 videos from 2 students who started from scratch so that you can see what is possible after just a few months. So this is Ingrid after 4 months starting from scratch. And this is Sabine, who started from scratch at 67 after 4 months. And now there is 4 points that all my most successful students have. And the first one is that they all learn with a real step-by-step plan. That's really the thing that most adults beginners are missing. So basically what it is, I think the easiest way to understand is just to look, for example, at that. That's our curriculum for the Violinacademy. And like you can see, there is 15 levels. And they start learning from level 1. And then in each week, there is a lesson on one specific step. And this is just one example, but the point is, what I see a lot of adults do in the opposite is that they just learn some random things in a random order. And even when the teacher have some book with some pieces and that every week they learn the next piece, for example, like a lot of students who learn with the Suzuki method, the main thing that is always missing is the next point, is that they focus on learning pieces instead of focusing on learning violin skills. This is especially important if you want to learn to play the violin beautifully. If you just want to be able to play, and it doesn't matter to you if it sounds like, then you probably don't need that. But if you want it to sound really, with a beautiful sound, beautiful intonation, sounding free and musically, then you need to focus first on learning the violin skills. So what are the main violin skills? So in the Violin Pyramid Method, there is 4 pillars of violin mastery. The first one is the sound. So the sound is really just of beautiful it sound with a bow. The second one, intonation, is just if you are playing the right note with the left hand. The third one, rhythm, is just when you are playing, if you are playing the right rhythm with a stable tempo that you can really feel. And the first one, musicality, is just if when you play, that it really sounds interesting and musical. And instead of learning specific pieces, that means that you should focus on learning how can I have a beautiful sound with a bow? How can I play the right note with the left hand systematically? How I can play every piece in the perfect tempo with perfect rhythmic accuracy. And in the end, how to play really freely and musically. Those are the violin skills. And then you can apply those to any piece you like. Now the next point is something I call consistency versus sprint training. A lot of adults I see are learning the violin like if it was a sprint. For one day they will practice like 2-3 hours at once. And they will often repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And then maybe they are tired or they don't have the time, and for a few days they will don't practice at all anymore. What you want to do instead is to practice consistently. And maybe you think, but I don't have the time to practice 2 hours a day. But the good news is you don't need 2 hours a day. Actually, what I found with hundreds of students is that if you practice the right way, 15 minutes a day can be enough. Of course, if you don't practice the right way, it doesn't matter how much you practice, it's never enough. So better to aim for 15 minutes every single day than 3 hours every weekend and nothing during the week. So now let's get to the next point. If you can afford it and really want to play beautifully, the best advice I can give you is to get the best possible violin teacher. That's exactly the reason why I hire only the top 1% of violin teachers for the Violinacademy. But in the end, there is only one thing that really matters, and if you remember only one thing from today's video, that will be this. It's just 4 words. Don't ever give up. And now what I would really advise you is to get a good 15-minute practice routine. And I show that exactly in this video.